Ilia, after the fight, he called in Paddy Pimblett and brought him into the cage, and they had to face off. Obviously, they've got a long history together. I know there's a lot of options on the table for Ilia, but when he shows that type of interest in a fight, does that make you want to make it?
Well, I don't know who the hell let him in there. That should have never happened. Let's start there. That's not the fight. It's just, yeah.
It was fun to watch.
It shouldn't happen.
It was fun.
I think they should make Paddy Pimblett versus Arman Sarukian. I think a title eliminator between Paddy Pimblett and Arman kind of makes sense. If Ilia Topuria wants to fight Paddy Pimblett so bad, right? I think, honestly, with the way that Paddy's been performing, he should be, in the title conversation, But also Arman Sarukian, he should be in there too. I think that there should definitely be a title eliminator between Paddy and Arman, in my honest opinion.
To watch.
Well, that's not really what we do. Give a shit if it was fun to watch or not. It's just that shouldn't happen. Plus, he wins a second title in a higher division. It was a bad call by whoever the hell let him in there.
All right, so Ilia Topuria just utterly destroyed Charles Oliveira in the very first round and is now officially on the short
That knockout was beautiful
list of 2 division champions throughout UFC history. It's pretty incredible what this guy has been able to do in the few short years that he's been in the UFC. I mean, he hasn't even fought 10 fights in the promotion, and yet he's already on the fast track for becoming one of the greatest to ever do it. We have never seen Oliveira get knocked out cold like this before, and the guy's fought like 600 fights in the UFC up to this point, so it really does make the result of tonight all that
I think that Ilia Topuria right now makes a strong conversation at being in the top 10. Best to ever do it. Am I wrong? Let me know in the comments.
more impressive. And for reasons I cannot and will not understand, during the post-fight interview, the UFC brought Paddy Pimblett into the cage to do a face-off, which I thought was really dumb when it happened. I thought this meant that Dana had already decided that Paddy was for sure next in line for the title, but thankfully he confirmed in the post-fight press conference that this isn't the case. And yeah, in this video, I'm going to be talking about all of this as well as my thoughts of UFC 317 as a whole. I will say that even though the result of this fight was a first-round knockout where Charles was left laid out on the canvas with his eyes wide open, that doesn't mean that he didn't have moments of success. He was able to land some clean punches on Topuria that we've seen him drop guys with in the past. I think attacking Ilia's legs was also a really smart strategy, especially if he was able to drag the fight into the championship rounds, which obviously didn't end up happening, but it was still a smart move that I think Ilia's future opponent should also implement. And honestly, there was a moment during the leg lock attempt where I thought that he could pull off the submission, but Topuria ended up escaping. But Topuria is just inevitable at this stage in his career, and not long after the fight was reset, he was able to land a monstrous right hand that sent Charles to the Shadow Realm. The way that
I think that the main thing that messed up Charles Oliveira in that fight was the fact that he kept pressing forward. Like, there was moments, or right before Charles Oliveira got knocked out, Ilia Topuria broke his base, and Charles just kept coming forward for whatever reason and took an ego challenge in the center of the octagon. Like, he had so much space to just take a disengagement, and for whatever reason, he just didn't. And it ended up costing him the fight, I think, prematurely.
Oliveira was laying there with the lights on but nobody was home really reminds me of when Kamaru Usman got knocked out by Leon Edwards. It was kind of surreal watching Oliveira's body just go completely limp from the standing position, because even though we've seen him get finished via strikes before, he's never been truly knocked out. He got TKO'd by Donald Cerrone, but that started with a body shot. He got TKO'd by Cub Swanson, where he kind of just flailed around on the ground and quit, and then he got TKO'd by Max Holloway when he got punched in the throat and couldn't continue. But in this fight, dear lord, he got cracked with as clean of a right hand there is and immediately went to a place where time doesn't exist. That being said, I really get the feeling that Ilia and his team practiced punching at the same time Charles punched, and I think it was a smart game plan. For one, it helped to minimize the size and reach advantage that Oliveira had over him, and two, waiting for Charles to plant his feet and throw would let Ilia know where his head is going to be at that exact moment. Because although Charles does a lot of things really well, I wouldn't really say that slick head movement is one of his better qualities as a fighter. So
Well, Charles Oliveira just made the dumb decision of just pressing forward even in times where he was in a bad position. Like, I don't understand what kind of IQ they're teaching over there in Brazil, but if Charles Oliveira had a brain between his head, he should have just taken a lot more disengagements. But he is just pressing for whatever reason, even in positions where he should take an obvious disengagement.
In theory, when Ilia saw that Charles was going to commit to a punch, he could put faith in his chin and his power and his speed to land the bigger shot and knock him out, and in practice, that's exactly what happened. Also, Charles is such a forward pressure fighter, and giving up space against him oftentimes lets him build
100%.
momentum in his fight, so Ilia punching at the same time didn't allow him to gain the space he needed to march Topuria down. And before I forget to say this, I genuinely believe that after knocking out Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Charles Oliveira in back-to-back-to-back fights, this has to be the greatest 3-fight run that I've ever seen in the UFC. I could keep talking about the fight itself, but I really want to talk about Paddy being brought into the octagon to face off with Ilia. Look, I like Paddy a lot, and he's really made a believer out of me in his last few fights, but I don't know if it makes all that much sense to give him a title shot off of a win over 39-year-old Michael Chandler, who hasn't
It doesn't. It doesn't. It really doesn't.
won a fight in over 3 years. It was a great performance and all, but if we are giving out title shots for beating Chandler, then what are we really doing here?
With Charles, I had a little bit difficult situation because I really like the guy, you know. He's a really great human being. You can hate him. You always see him surrounded by his family, friends, teammates. He's an amazing human being. But at the end, I was like, this is competition. I have to do my job, and that's it. But with Paddy, I'm really gonna enjoy kicking his ass.
Based on resume and merit, obviously Arman Sarukian is the true #1 contender. I mean,
Thank
they literally
you.
had this guy as the backup fighter for this title fight where they even made him make weight, but then after the fight is over, they have Paddy enter the cage and announce him as the guy that's fighting for the title next. This is pretty strange, isn't it? Like, listen, I feel weird defending Arman Sarukian here after the last few videos that I made about him, but it's just bizarre to me that the UFC pulled this stunt on him. Not gonna lie, seeing all of this go down really makes me think that Dana made Arman cut weight as the backup fighter as a way to see if he can actually still make it down to 155 after the fiasco at UFC 311, which I still fully believe he pulled out because he couldn't make weight. I mean, just listen to what Dana said yesterday about Arman making weight for this event.
And Arman Sarukian, he weighed in as a backup fighter. He weighed in successfully at 155 pounds. So with that being said, is it safe to say that he will now fight for the title next?
No, it's a good step in the right direction. Let's put it that way.
It's a good start is a very telling response to describe a guy making weight who just pulled out of a title fight for supposedly getting injured. I don't know, I feel like there's just a mountain of evidence at this point that indicates that Arman is not in Dana's good graces after UFC 311, and it's not because he got
I mean, obviously he's not. That was like a huge fight, and they had to freaking fill in Moicano. Like what? Like how the hell do you go from Arman Sarukian to like ranked what? I think that Moicano was ranked like number 9 at that point. Like how? You know what I'm saying? Like that was supposed to be a huge fight for the lightweight division, and unfortunately, because Arman Sarukian got injured, I mean, UFC lost out in a lot of potential, you know, hype in the entire organization because of Arman Sarukian. Like, obviously, Dana White isn't going to really be fucking with Arman after that.
injured. And you know what? I agree with Dana. I'm not the biggest fan of Sarukian these days myself, and I said in my previous video that I made about him that he needs to fight at least one guy before he's given a title shot again. So we have two guys in Paddy and Arman who I don't think deserve to fight for the title at this current moment, and who I think both need to bolster their case just a little bit more for the title shot to feel warranted. What do I think the UFC should do? Have them fight each other. I feel like this only makes
That's the obvious matchup. Like, I don't understand how some people are pushing for Paddy to fight Ilia. I think some people are just hoping that Ilia gets an easy title defense so he could continue to boast his legacy. But this should be the fight to make. Arman versus Paddy. I think Arman beats Paddy, to be honest. And then they should make Arman versus Ilia.
sense. It's kind of crazy to me that the UFC is trying to fast track Paddy to a title shot after beating Chandler, and I personally
And I know why they're doing it. Is because even though Arman is the better fighter, Paddy's the bigger name. And at the end of the day, it's just money. It's money bags. It's money signs. It's views. It's the bigger fight to make on paper.
personally feel like Arman versus Paddy as a title eliminator would be awesome, but what do I know?
The only person in the top 10 I can think of who's under 35 is Arman Sarukian. He's just a little posh boy who's had everything handed to him on a silver platter by his dad.
Do you think he actually got injured or no? Or what do you think happened?
No, he's a little bitch ass. That's what you are, Arman. Little boy.
God, I really wish the UFC kept a camera running on Arman as Paddy was in the cage with Ilia. I'm sure he was fucking seething. Dana really did this guy dirty this week, and frankly, I find it hilarious. It's wrong and it's petty, but it's hilarious. I know that Gaethje's been whining about getting the title shot next, and he's been threatening to retire if he doesn't get it, but that's
Oh
just
my
nonsense.
God.
Gaethje's claim for a title shot right now is so much worse than Arman's and Paddy's.
Gaethje's argument towards getting a title shot is beating a guy that hasn't won a fight in like 2 years, previously to fighting, Fiziev. In my honest opinion, I just don't think Justin Gaethje right now is in the conversation, like not even close.
Honestly, if you're asking me, I don't care what combination of Paddy or Arman or Justin you do for a title eliminator. I just think that all of them need one more win over one of those other guys before they get a title shot, and I really don't think that what I'm saying is all that out of line. And if the UFC does in fact move forward with Paddy Pimblett as Ilia's first title defense, of course I'll look forward to it because I really like both of those guys, but that won't change the fact that it's a really dumb move.
So obviously, I do think that Arman Tsarukyan should be next up for fighting for the title because he's the number one contender. If you guys go look at the rankings, Arman's name is going to be right there next to the number one under the champion. He should be fighting for the belt next. They're trying to push the fight with Paddy so freaking hard, in my honest opinion, because Paddy is a bigger name. He's obviously a bigger draw. Even though Arman Tsarukyan, in my opinion, is a more skilled fighter, and obviously he's the number one contender, they're trying to push the Paddy fight just so they could go make that fat ass paycheck. But if the UFC just kind of wants to be fair, they should do Arman versus Paddy. I think Arman wins, and then they should do Arman versus Ilia. That's the way that I see it, honestly. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Subscribe to the channel. As always, it's a pleasure. Peace out.